So, Teen Titans Go. Yeah, this was probably inevitable, wasn't it? I mean, this is a show that's been covered by literally every single animation reviewer on YouTube at this point, with like, what, maybe 2 exceptions? Now, I technically spoke once before about this series way back during the premiere of the crossover special with the rebooted Powerpuff Girls, as a way of promoting the new show at the time. But I was mostly reviewing that from a Powerpuff point of view. So I guess this is technically the first and probably last time I'll ever do an entire video to discuss Teen Titans Go because, let's face it, this series has already been talked about to death, and other than what I have to say in this video, there isn't much more that I could really contribute to the conversation. Truth be told, I kinda liked Teen Titans Go when it first premiered. It had some jokes that catered to my sense of humor, and a lot of the earlier episodes were okay in their own right. It was only around the end of season 2 where things really started to decline, and ironically enough, that's about when I stopped watching the show until I came back to the series for this video. Everywhere you go on the internet, whether it's YouTube or DeviantArt or whatever else you use to look at animation stuff, you're bound to come across people expressing their hatred for Teen Titans Go. I mean, this negativity is everywhere, and it's kind of exaggerated. Don't get me wrong, I totally see why so many people are upset with this series, given that it's no longer an action-based show in an age where comedies dominate the animation industry, but I don't know, I think there's much worse out there right now. It doesn't help that the original series never got a proper conclusion, and everyone's been waiting on Starfire's arc for the longest time, not to mention what happened with Terra, but it doesn't look like we're getting an answer to that anytime soon, so this reboot is here to stay. My biggest conundrum when writing this video script was trying to find things to say that haven't already been said before. I mean, I get it, people hate Teen Titans Go, but it's become so overstated to the point where we just need to move on to something else now. Ah, but see, everybody else has already said that too. Do you see my problem here? Regardless, wouldn't you agree that it's tiring to see people constantly making hate videos for this show when it's really not as terrible as people say it is?
Well, shit.
Yeah, I realize the can of worms I just opened up by saying that, but I am fully prepared for what is about to happen. I just wonder that, with all the negative videos on Teen Titans Go that are out there, is it possible to do a predominantly positive video on this series? Barely anyone seems to focus on the things this show does right, so I want to try my hand at attempting to compliment this show as much as I can. Without further ado, here goes nothing. Teen Titans Go is not the worst show in the world. It's not the worst reboot in the world. It's not the worst comedy in the world. I would much rather sit down, grab a bucket of popcorn, and spend my time viewing episodes of Teen Titans Go than having to put up with shows like Planet Sheen or Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue or Mega Babies or Super Duper Sumos or The Brothers Grunt or Secret Mountain Fort Awesome or Breadwinners or Caillou or Alan Gregory or Ren and Stimpy Adult Party Cartoon, just to name a few. Yes, this series has its fair share of bad episodes. All cartoons do. But the immeasurable amount of hate that this show gets is absolutely absurd. I know Teen Titans Go has its flaws. I'm aware of the generally poor writing quality and lowbrow humor. I want to make that clear. I don't consider this to be one of my most favorite cartoons of all time. Far from it, actually. My overall opinion of the show is just, well, it's a guilty pleasure. So, well, what can I compliment first? Let's start with the art style. I like it. I really like it. The way it stands out compared to other shows like We Bare Bears, Clarence Adventure Time, and so on when it comes to design and color vibrance are what drew me in the first place. It's like colorful eye candy, just watching all of the luminescent colors pop off of the screen against the mostly bluish backgrounds that the show consists of. Maybe I'm just a sucker for colorful diversity, but the more saturated look of, say, Starfire's hair or Robin's costume really accents them well. The thicker outlines of the characters also make them more pronounced. Thick black outlines have always been my preferred style of choice when it comes to cartoons because of the bolder framework and all-around sleeker look. And if I can continue to compliment Teen Titans Go's designs even further, it's that all 5 of the characters have a distinct body shape and size relative to the other characters. After erasing all of the inner details of the character models, you can still tell who is supposed to be who because they have a unique shape and outline that doesn't clash with any of the other main characters. And the voices. Teen Titans Go got the original voice cast back. So there are no issues with people complaining that the characters don't sound like how they used to because all 5 of the Titans are still acting as their respective characters. Good on them for that. The visual gags and references to other DC franchises also add a nice touch too. There are minor little details that the animators like to throw in from time to time, and I absolutely love that because the show is aware of its own universe and the existence of other heroes within it. That was a Batman the Animated Series reference. All of these things that I just listed off are great things that Teen Titans Go gets right, and while the animation isn't always the smoothest it could possibly be, it still gets a pass from me. Personally, I don't find Teen Titans Go to be a total failure when it comes to comedy. Like, obviously I don't find the gross out stuff very appealing because that doesn't cater to my personal tastes, and the real life images and clips can get a bit distracting at times, although they are done immensely better than the Powerpuff reboot, but the show does manage to get a laugh out of me with its situational and slapstick humor every now and again.
On your mark, get set!
The way I typically see it is that if an episode of a comedy show can get me to laugh at least once, I deem it a success on that front because it accomplished what it set out to do, being funny. Not every joke is going to be a hit with everyone. This show has managed to get me to laugh more times than I ever thought it would when I first started watching it, and I'm not afraid to admit that.
Do I look like I was born yesterday?
Kinda.
Yeah?
While I'm in the group of people that would much rather prefer a conclusion to the original series that I grew up with, Teen Titans Go being its own separate thing isn't something that I'm losing sleep over, and I won't criticize this show for being nothing like the original. In fact, I'm going to praise it for that. I'll certainly make comparisons between the two because comparing and contrasting episodes of cartoons is always a good thing to do to evaluate the pros and cons of each example, but I don't want to let the familiarity principle get the better of me entirely. It's a reboot for a reason. It's different, and it knows that. I respect Teen Titans Go for having its own identity and being fully aware that it's nothing like the original show that most young adults nowadays are familiar with. Because if it tried to appease both sides, it'd just end up like Powerpuff Girls 2016 or Shaolin Chronicles. These shows have no idea if they want to be a reboot or a continuation, and they ultimately fail at being either because they can't make up their mind to choose one side or the other. This is a problem that Teen Titans Go doesn't have. It tries to be as different as possible from the original series. It brings something new to the animated franchise that no previous incarnation has done before. Of course, Teen Titans Go still reuses old episode ideas, the writing is still pretty rough around the edges, and the characters can be pretty obnoxious depending on the situation. These are arguments I agree with, but I'm coming from the standpoint that the show is still doing something different on purpose. It knows what it wants to do, and it does just that. It wants to be random. It wants to be obscene. It wants to make you know that it's nothing like the series that came before it, and it succeeds in doing that because it keeps sparking reactions out of people. It's getting exactly what it wants. Attention. This show is successful. It is one of Cartoon Network's biggest shows of all time in terms of ratings, popularity, and profit. This is something that a lot of people tend to forget when they question why this show airs all the time. It's because it makes money. It has succeeded in being a hit comedy show for the network that catches people's attention. It has succeeded in being an entertaining kids show that they can't get enough of. It has succeeded in getting renewed enough to accrue over 200 episodes. 200 episodes! That's over 100 half hours of Teen Titans Go compared to the mere 65 of the original. This show is clearly doing well for itself if it's managed to outperform the first series that it's based upon. For that, I can't help but respect it for managing to accomplish such a feat no matter how much it decides to scrape the bottom of the bottle at times. Quality isn't always necessary for something to succeed, just look at all the Illumination films. As critical as I am of works that don't seem to have that tender love and care put into it, and as much as I despise it when artistic integrity is discarded for the sake of networks being greedy, I cannot ignore the fact that this simply works for them. However, there is a bright side to this. One pro of this unfortunate reality is that it just makes the great movies and shows that people already love feel even greater. For every Teen Titans Go out there, there's a Rick and Morty just around the bend counterbalancing it. If there were no bad shows, there would be no good shows. There would simply be shows. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like life would be pretty boring, wouldn't you agree? I don't want to spend too much time being negative on this series because, again, that's not the point of this video, but I'm not going to beat around the bush and pretend this series does nothing wrong. I'm with the majority of people when I say I'm not a fan of the Attack the Critic episodes that were made as a way to insult the fans of the older series. I also acknowledge episodes like Who's Laughing Now for talking down on the American education system for no reason other than spite from what I can tell, the Bottle episode for showing showing off the sheer arrogance held by the Titans and their egos. Gorilla for being the worst episode in the entire series and showing just how bad hypocrisy can really get with people. This show does have bad episodes. Everything I've said up to this point isn't defending them. Teen Titans Go's biggest problem is the writing, and a number of these episodes certainly lack good writing. Everyone can go to the obvious and point out things like Return of Slade, Let's Get Serious, The Fourth Wall, Wally T, and Waffles for being all around terrible episodes of this show. And even though I actually like Waffles to a degree, they most certainly aren't this series' magnum opus. But just because some episodes turn out worse than others doesn't mean there isn't anything good about it. On the contrary, plenty of Season 1 and a chunk of Season 2 episodes were perfectly fine. Harmless even. Girls' Night Out, Colors of Raven, Legendary Sandwich, Legs, Friendship, video game references, Laundry Day, Super Robin, La Larva D'Amour, Opposites, The Cape. What? I think it's a perfectly fine parody episode that manages to poke fun at the original series in a less derogatory way than other episodes do. It wasn't nearly as distasteful as the way it came across in The Fourth Wall, and honestly, when people make the argument that it's lazy for just stealing footage from the original series and redubbing it, they miss the entire point of the episode. It's parody. They didn't do it to be lazy, they did it to not only try something new episode-wise, but also to have fun. Want to see me shut down most of the criticisms that episode gets in 2 words? C-Lab 2021. By this logic, C-Lab 2021 is one of the worst television shows ever made. A show whose entire basis for the cartoon's existence was literally just redubbing over episodes from C-Lab 2020 and making fun of things from the original show.
The FCC has closed in on your signal, and you...
Shut up. It's time for the I Hate Marco show.
I hate Marco, and his mailbox head.
It's hypocritical to say that The Cape is lazy for reusing animation from the old show and redubbing it without chastising C-Lab 2021, a beloved cult classic by the way, for doing the exact same thing. What's that? Team 4-Star took a bunch of anime episodes and redubbed them into a comedy-based abridged series? Well, they must be the laziest YouTubers on the internet then. The other major complaint that The Cape gets is that it makes fun of the original series, but isn't that what 90% of all parodies do? Personally, I found some of the gags in The Cape to be hilarious.
Hey, are we cool?
If we weren't, would we be playing rock, paper, scissors right now?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, rock!
Oh, all right, 2 out of 3.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, rock!
Oh, man, you did rock the last time.
I thought I was gonna throw scissors.
And this is coming from someone who's a fan of the old show, by the way. I love when shows do this sort of thing. So I'm not afraid to go against the majority here and say that The Cape is a perfectly fine episode that gets way more hate than it deserves. I guess some people just can't take a joke. But honestly, to go back to what I was saying in the beginning, I understand where the hate for this series comes from. Teen Titans Go chose to go the route of a comedy instead of the action show that many people were hoping for, and it really didn't live up to their expectations. And it certainly doesn't help that Cartoon Network overplays Teen Titans Go all the time instead of giving some slots to their other shows. In fact, I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Alpha J because he did a much better job than I ever could of discussing exactly why the oversaturation of Teen Titans Go isn't the fault of the show itself, but rather the networks. I recommend you check it out if you have the time. I personally get some enjoyment out of certain episodes of this show. I don't know, maybe I'm just weird like that. But I wanted to try and make a mostly positive video on this series since I've rarely seen anyone else do it before. Whether or not I did a good job, well, be sure to leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter for daily updates on upcoming videos and such, and follow me on Tumblr if you feel like talking to me on there as well. I'm pretty active on both accounts. In short, Teen Titans Go, while not the greatest show in the world, still has some good qualities that a lot of people overlook. I totally get why so many people have an issue with this series, and that's perfectly fine because the show doesn't appeal to everyone. But at the end of the day, I still say there is much worse out there.